Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Got Davis Michelson with me. We're talking fuels today and energy markets. And Davis, there was a press release from the Environmental Protection Agency this morning. Just give you the opening paragraph to that. In response to the recent ransomware attack on the Colonial Pipeline, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Michael Regan today issued an emergency fuel waiver to help alleviate fuel shortages in states whose supply of reformulated gasoline has been impacted by the pipeline shutdown. EPA has waived the federal reed vapor pressure requirements for fuel sold in reformulated gas in those areas that may be experiencing some shortages here. Let's talk about what's going on there with Emily Skor. She's the CEO of Growth Energy. Joins us again. Emily, it's good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm terrific, Chip. Always good to speak with you.
Yeah, I tell you what, EPA and Administrator Regan moving pretty quick on this, aren't they?
Well, no surprise. And the waivers that they announced this morning are pretty consistent with what they would do when we have a fuel supply emergency. So they waived the RFG and the other RVP requirements, essentially saying you can use gasoline from conventional areas, and that just eases up a fuel provider's ability to access fuel. But I tell you what, there's more they could do. They could make E15 available immediately at terminal, and that would help ease the pressure as well. And so we are sending a letter to the White House today to make that request.
Yeah, that's part of I mean, this is amazing what the renewable fuels, and I'm not just going to focus on ethanol on this because I'm thinking about those trucks that are going to be hauling more fuel that isn't flowing through the pipeline. With the renewable diesel, the biodiesel, there's all kinds of opportunities here for biofuels to help solve some of these issues, right?
You're absolutely right. We don't transport through the pipeline, so we can address, the issue. We're a workaround. We're also a clean solution, and so we stand ready to work with local officials, with the fuel supply chain, to make sure we can use biofuels and we can use E15 right now. We can make it broadly available at terminals for retailers so that consumers don't have to. I mean, already you're hearing stories of consumers lining up, shortages, no fuel at certain stations, across much of the country. We just can't have that right now, and we don't need to have that either.
Right. Emily, as soon as this happened, I went out on social media just to see what some of the consumer reaction might be. And to no surprise, there is still a misunderstanding of what this, even going to an E15 or a waiver of the reed vapor pressure requirements means. Your message to those consumers that might be concerned or hesitant to use an E15 over what they're used to with an E10?
Oh my goodness, this is approved for the 95% of the cars on the road, and it's also going to be good for the pocketbook. So it's good for clean air, good for the engine, good for the pocketbook. I would say pump it and use it with confidence. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, You've had some meetings here recently, Emily, and you know what? I should stress that it is National Biofuels Month, and here on AgriTalk, I'm not ashamed to say every month is Biofuels Month here on AgriTalk, Emily, because we are big supporters of it because of what it does for the ag economy and what it does for the environment. But the whole effort to promote the environmental benefit side of it, Emily, it feels like that's been rejuvenated because of, or in part due to, EPA Administrator Michael Regan's willingness to hear that message and understand that message. Am I missing it?
Well, I agree, and I would add, it's not only Mr. Regan, it's the president. I mean, this administration has ushered in a wave of climate consciousness unlike anything that we've ever experienced. And so we as an industry, we are so ready and poised to have this conversation. We had last week, Growth Energy held in person our executive leadership conference. We hadn't met as an industry in person in 15 months. And Chip, I'm here to tell you we are back. It was a phenomenal and safe and appropriate gathering. compliant, with what the things that you need to consider. But last week I had a fireside chat with Mr. Regan. It was his first address to a biofuels group since taking over confirmation. He had just visited a plant in ethanol. It was a very good dialogue and exchange about some of the immediate short-term things. He clearly has a grasp of RVOs and RFS and so forth, but also talking about liquid fuels are going to be, and we're going to be here for a long time, and we've got to make sure that we have more biofuels in the gas tank.
That one I'm hearing more and more, Emily, that there is because initially it was, they're going to put up 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Oh, we're going to make that move so fast. I think there's a greater understanding that liquid fuel vehicles are going to be around for quite some time as we make a transition. But I hope that EPA, I hope others in the Biden administration, I know USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack understands this, but do you think that Administrator Regan has a plan on how biofuels can be used in a high octane, low carbon effort to be used in the administration's carbon reduction plans?
I think they're working on a plan, and I would say plans. It's not going to be one policy. What's key for us is there's going to be, whether we're talking infrastructure, tax and spending, there's going to be a lot of investment across the board on infrastructure and climate. We need to make sure that we are in all the conversations and all the decisions and all the resource allocations. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and I think that we are very top of mind. And I will say, events like what we're experiencing with the pipeline, it speaks to the importance of having a diverse and clean energy mix as a country and having an affordable one. And so, our message, it's very timely right now. You can use a fuel like E15. You are immediately cleaning up our fuel supply, and it's affordable for every consumer, and they can use it in the cars on the road today. So it's a very timely message, and one, our message is we want to be a constructive partner. We'll be creative in the solutions, but we are something that you can use and deploy right now in today's auto fleet, and that's very important.
And just think what would happen if the automakers would engage with this and we get the next gen engines out there that can make greater use of the renewable fuels that we can put out there in front of them right now. Emily, is there any talk about that?
We have always had ongoing conversations with the auto industry, and we will continue to do that. And another component too that we've added is we launched our Get Biofuel consumer campaign last week. What's exciting to me, Chip, is that with this campaign, and what we're saying is we're reminding drivers that you have the option to choose a cleaner fuel that fuels beyond the gas tank, and you become part of the climate change solution. A simple change can change everything, E15. And so with this ability to connect with the consumer and what's top of mind for the consumer now, we've got what I call the E15 trifecta. So we have a full throttle effort, part of our market expansion strategy. We're pursuing pro-growth policies at the state and federal level. We're leveraging commercial opportunities, and we're spurring consumer demand. So we've got to put every resource we possibly can into this conversation. And I'm excited for what we'll see in the months ahead.
Yeah. Emily, I know that you're a big supporter of biodiesel, renewable diesel. Recently, it feels like those products have really been able to capture the consumer's attention when it comes to the environmental benefits. Ethanol still seems to be struggling a little bit to do that. What's the difference? Why?
I think part of it goes back to we still have to address some of the misinformation that's just been out there for over a decade. And so most consumers really are not familiar with ethanol, and if they if they hear about it, they've got some of that negative messaging, that myth and that misinformation. So part of it is making sure that they understand ethanol is biofuel.
Yeah.
And that when you connect those environmental benefits with what's in the gas tank, and this is something that you can easily provide for yourself. So all the more reason that we've got to take the bull by the horns, and we've got to be driving consumer demand and doing our proactive communications. and not just the blocking and the tackling of a defensive posture.
Okay. I feel like maybe I shouldn't say this too loud, but I am going to go ahead and say it. Big oil hasn't been nearly as noisy about this as what they were before the Biden administration, right?
Well, they're still putting up a good fight, but, I will say that with this administration, they're in a different position. And we're in a stronger position because we are part of the solution. We do help get our country to net zero emissions. And that's recognized by some of the leading, climate analysis firms. So we're in a good position, and we recognize that. And I think, on the oil side, they've got to evaluate what their plan is and their path moving forward.
Yeah, the refiners are looking to the biofuels industry and ethanol in particular to extend their life. And, the latest study that showed how great ethanol is in reducing greenhouse gas emissions is only going to add fuel. It's only going to help ethanol's cause in that. I don't think there's any question about it. Emily, it's always good to talk with you. I can't believe that we're out of time. Good grief. Thank you.
Thanks, Chip.